Hey YouTube. So this is going to be a guide on Uldaman, mostly from a tank perspective. This will assume that you know the basic mechanics for each mob in the dungeon as well as the bosses, but I will most likely briefly go over how to deal with those mechanics, and yeah, get into it. So this first pull here, since it's tyrannical, and not bolstering, I'm going to be pulling quite a bit, pretty much up to the three basilisks right up here. Now, there's quite a bit that you would want to interrupt. Um, Realistically, you're going to be using a lot of stop rotations for the spike carapaces and the chain lightnings. Yeah, you can use the stops or kicks or whatever. Um, I think in an ideal situation, you'd have one person call stops. Uh, in a pug setting, it's not too realistic, but you can still tell your group beforehand to make sure to use stops. If not, you can also dispel the spike carapaces, so it's not too big of a deal, especially if a priest of some kind. Same thing here. I want to ideally just do all of this in as less or least amount of pulls as possible. So this is another pretty dangerous pull. A lot of casters, so a lot of magic tank damage. And then you also have the disease bite, which is another tank buster. That one's physical though, so you can parry it. But aside from that, it's the same thing as the first pull. You really just want to use stops on. Actually, I don't think no these mobs do cast chain lightning. Chain lightning and spike carapaces. And we're gonna skip on ahead here. So with this pull right before, what is his name? This guy, Totem Boss. We're gonna kill the Geomancer or whatever that mob is, the caster, and then we're going to get it these mobs close to 40%. So that 50, and I'm gonna pull the boss, and what happens is they'll cast like Reckless Rage, I think it's called, and it's going to buff the boss, and it's going to make it so that he does more damage, but also takes more damage. You can see his health is dropping very fast, especially with less than CDs. As a DK, you can grip the Geomancers, and then I usually just interrupt the chain lightnings. And that's kind of it. I guess if I really wanted to mention Pally, you can just throw your stupid shield at it. That's pretty much rinse and repeat. Oftentimes, as a DK, I also stand in the swirl to get runic power. Is it really? Same thing, same thing. And then when we go back to the dwarves, I pull in these two basilisks here, which I guess you could say is more funnel. I usually assign my DPS the kicks on those while I take Olaf. And really with this boss, as soon as you see that wild cleave, you're good to move. You don't want to point that at your group. And then, so you'll see after we'll skip ahead to when they phase. Not phase, but so when they drop down here, what you can do is you can come around this rock so that Eric follows you. Sometimes he can be a little finicky and be like way over here, but yeah, you'll see like right here.
Like, do you want range staying up there?
So I'm pretty much just waiting for the wild cleave, and then right here, and then I move to over to Eric, and then that's again also pretty much the fight. There isn't too much else to talk about here. So I will skip ahead. Okay. So this is also another pretty big and dangerous pull. It's going to be a lot of casters, a lot of stops, and a lot of tank busters. That is dodgeable, might I add. So first I grab in that one Weaver with the two Custodians, and then pop A bomb. You stop the hails. And then pretty much what I'm doing here is just face tanking pretty much until all my CDs run out, which they will be very, very, very soon. I'm pretty much leaving before IBF even drops. Um, Ideally, you kite around this entire area here. One mistake that I made when I was playing with this kind of camera angle is that you cannot go over this little lip here, if you can see it right here. So make sure you're coming over here. Uh, I bring this up because it has happened where I just get stuck there and almost die because of it. But ideally, you want to stay in this room, even if all the casters are alive, um, because you want to make sure that you get stops on the hails. Especially as a DK, you have the ability to stop most of them, not all, but most. And then you pretty much never want to take a jagged bite after you start running away. Uh, if you see them cast, you can actually sidestep, or not sidestep, but strafe out. I don't know if backpedaling is enough to dodge it. It doesn't. It doesn't seem like it from when I was playing it. Um, the only thing that I'll really say about this boss is you want to make sure you're keeping track of the stacks. So you see he has 2 here, and the boss absorbs 2. So just need to make sure not to run in early, um, because time is very important on this fight. So you want to maximize that time as much as possible. And you could also even delay stunning the boss maybe another second or so if you really want to min max it. Something to note is that warriors have a chance to spell reflect. They have to time it and pretty much guess if it's going to go on them. That can do a lot of damage. Evokers can cleanse or cauterize. Paladins can bop. So just something to keep in mind when thinking about what to bring for this dungeon. Paladins especially are really good, especially for last boss, which I'll get to when we get there.
Boobs?
Okay. I don't think I triple pull this.
Boobs?
It's not necessarily needed because either way you're gonna be doing two separate pulls. Well, actually, now that I think about it, you probably could do everything in two pulls, and I'll see, or you'll see what I mean. So what you could do is you can pull this pack to my right with this one. And on Tyran, this is very, very doable. So this pack right here. And then what you could do is you could pull these 5 mobs here with the next pack. That is pretty spooky because there's a lot of damage going out from the casters as well as the tank buster fishing slam. This is another one of those pulls where it's just like interrupt the curses, especially if you don't have a D curse. Stop the hails, and don't point cleaves at the group. It's the same as the other pulls, really. Yeah, you could potentially pull those 5 mobs into here and reduce a pull. So if the tank can handle it, that's probably something you should do to save time. It'll have to be something that I try out. Also something to note, you cannot LOS this mob with the earthquake, unlike the other golems. I don't know why. Nobody knows why. But that's just how it is. Another thing you could do is you can pull these mobs right here onto the boss because they don't do anything. The issue that I have with this, at least for this week, is spiteful. I honestly think that people will struggle with dealing with the damage plus spiteful because this boss does a lot of damage. But yeah, I'll get to that in a sec. The only thing with this pack is, you need kicks or stops. It's not bad at all. The pounces don't do anything. Or the tank gets a dot. It doesn't really do anything.
I reflect all of them.
So if it's not spiteful, you could definitely pull it with boss, I think. Or if the group is like practiced with how spiteful is. Because the mobs die at different times. It's kind of awkward. So for tank positioning here, ideally you want to be far away from the active ads. So you'll see when we started out, he was pretty close to 3 of them. He does a tank frontal first. So you want to make sure that you aim that outside and away from the group, and then you can move him. The rest is pretty much the same. It's just a lot of damage going out. You can mass the spell. I think it's every other. And for something to note for this phase, so you'll see these swirls here, right? Don't trust those. Pretend the swirls are way the fuck over here. Because there were times where we got killed by invisible lines and we thought that, danger was over here. It was in fact not, and it was like basically where we are now. It's really troll. I don't know what causes it, but it happens. So just be aware. You see the swirls just move back. This phase is boring. There isn't much damage going out, and it's pretty much rinse and repeat from here. So I'll skip ahead. Something also to note, I don't know what the percentage is, but when the boss is low enough, he doesn't phase again. Something to keep in mind. I don't know if he's capped at 3 intermissions or what. I don't know.
Oh, we're missing? Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
hop
gonna
on.
be like toward the end of the dungeon. Something to note here is that so you can LOS these mobs. You could double pull this. It's kind of sketchy, but if you're good with AoE stops, you can attempt to do it.
Fairly certain you can just
It pretty much mostly for the hails,
golems
right?
run around them that way.
Yeah, you can also do that, but yeah.
You don't have to mind too
Otherwise, like if you can't double pull this,
like
I think it'd be best to skip that pack. To be honest, it's only 3 mobs.
How did you know I was gonna bring that up?
Same thing here. You could bring this golem back for like higher fort keys.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I thought.
there isn't really a good place to LOS here, so just something to keep in mind. And then this next pull is a big pull again. Something to keep in mind is when you're grouping this, he's going to cast Blessing of Tyr, which is pretty good when you're grouping because it means that he's not going to cast it for like another 30 seconds. Curse of Stone, something to keep in mind of. I think there is 1 hail, if any. I don't think so actually. Lots of cleaves and bulwark, as well as the golems going off. So it's a pretty dangerous pull. I'll let it play out as well. Uh, I'll just say like I guess it's more general tank kind of thing. Just try to rotate defensives efficiently as you can. And also another thing is the guardian here is going to cast an here. As a DK, I can just AMS it and it's no big deal. I don't know how other tanks would fare against that, to be honest. Now, once both golems are dead, you can actually. Oh. I forgot this happened. Did that shade just go through the. Huh? Oh, I see. Yeah, I just didn't press Death Strike when I was at 66%. And I got meleeed right before the the slam.
Did you purge?
Yeah, ideally after both golems die, you just chain pull that last guardian into this pack. So same deal with this pull. You want to have your group LOS the golem when possible.
So
Interrupt the curses. Blessing of Tyr. This one you can run out of a lot easier just because there's space and there's pillars everywhere. So plenty of spots for your group to LOS. But make sure you're keeping track of the slam and use defensives accordingly. And then here's our last trash pull. I will pull those two mobs, the Time Reaver and the guy at the bottom of the stairs. And just because of the way they're positioned, I can easily have the Time Reaver on the corner so that your group can LOS the casts. You want to LOS, or in the case of DK, AMS around 3 seconds left on the dot. So 4, 3, 2. It reapplies here. Actually, it's 2 seconds, I would say, is a ideal time. 3, 2, and then it reapplies here. So that would be when you LOS, around like 2 seconds. As a tank, you're pretty much just going to have to rely on getting dispelled. Especially because you still need to survive the Time Blade tank busters, which aren't too bad, at least on tyrannical. On fortified, it's a bit scarier. So you have a few options for skipping these. First is you can invis, which we do have. The second option is something that we actually tried out this run, where we Mind Soothe. So we'll Mind Soothe the Patrol Time Reaver, and then we Mind Soothe the Whelps here. And then, so the Priest can just fade past. Everyone else gonna have to go around and kind of jump up through this wall. And you'll see me struggle here. Just a little bit. Struggling to parkour up here. All right, and we come to the last boss. This boss hurts. I think it's the currently second hardest hitting tank buster in the season. So you'll see I vamp with Lichborn, and it takes me down to like 30 something percent. With vamp alone, it brings me down to like 15-20%. It hurts. The hardest hitting tank buster is in Brackenhide, which that's a video for another time. So with this boss, you want to make use of space as much as you possibly can. You want to make sure that your melee can still hit the boss. So you have to also be mindful of when to move. So you see vamp there. It brought me pretty low. Also, another thing that I forgot to mention. At the start of the poll, I think... Yeah. See, he cast the dot, I think. Yeah. So time sync. And then wing buff it. So you want to make sure you use defensives there pretty much at the start of the pull. From here on out, it's basically just rotating defensives, both for the group and yourself. So just be mindful of when you have something like AMS, Vamp. If you really have to IBF, like if you don't have anything else, you could even use Tombstone as a way to mitigate that damage. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead because it's pretty much the same thing. But something to keep in mind is that space gets pretty sketchy toward the end here.
Probably do a move here, yeah.
I need to get out of here. But I don't have anything to heal the rewind, so gotta be careful.
So when he does rewind and you're in this situation, you can actually just move the boss. And then I'm pretty sure these clear up after time.
One last
But
Reach it.
yeah, and that's pretty much the fight. Making use of space and rotating CDs.
Lord, man.
Yeah. Using a pod, like
Tyrannical is a bit scary. For your entire group, maybe not as a tank, but for everyone else, yeah, bosses 3, 4, and 5. You have to play smart with your defensives. It also helps if you have a prot paladin in the group. But yeah, that's Uldaman Tyrannical. Hopefully that helps.